Hi everybody, we all know that India has the ambition to become the third largest economy.
India will be the third largest economy soon. तीसरे टर्म में दुनिया की पहली 3 इकोनॉमीज में एक नाम भारत का होगा.
But the sad truth is that 600 million Indians still don't have access to reliable internet. Now, do you realize that's more than the combined population of US, Russia and Germany? All of them are disconnected from jobs, education, healthcare and the digital economy.
As of 2025, nearly 600 million people in India still don't have internet access.
This country is home to over 900 million internet users, but internet penetration remains at around 47%.
We still have a large amount of the population that is not connected or doesn't have high quality internet access.
And even after Jio revolutionized mobile data and Airtel built one of the largest telecom networks in Asia, until now 50%, I repeat, 50% of Indian population is still not connected to the internet. So in cities, while we are streaming in 4K, in villages, students are still waiting for the page to buffer. In corporate boardrooms, while we keep talking about metaverse meetings, in villages, even a Zoom call feels like science fiction. And while we are building unicorns in Bengaluru, there are kids in Bihar who have never used YouTube. And while we in privileged cities complain about our Wi-Fi drops for 5 seconds, millions of people today haven't experienced Wi-Fi at all.
And as the government promotes a digital India, the internet penetration is still a challenge in many rural parts of India. And students have had to face many problems in attending online classes. In fact, trying to get an online education is literally like reaching for the sky.
But now, Elon Musk is about to bring something absolutely revolutionary to India. Starlink is now joining hands with Jio and Airtel to bring internet to the remotest corners of India. Not with towers, not with cables, but with satellites from space.
Starlink has inked agreements with the world's largest telecom network, Jio Platforms, and its largest competitor, Airtel.
Both Airtel and Jio were said to be planning rival products. They wanted to challenge Starlink. But now these companies are joining hands.
Starlink services are going to start in India soon.
Starlink does not need wires. It operates through a satellite dish like the one that is used for DTH television.
And if this works, it won't just bring internet, it could spark the next chapter of India's growth story. So just like Green Revolution fed a hungry nation, just like the telecom boom gave every Indian a voice, this could be the moment where rural India comes online to participate in India's next growth chapter. And this brings us to 3 very important questions. Why couldn't Jio and Airtel solve India's last mile problem even after slashing internet prices by 96%? What makes Starlink's technology so powerful that it might finally succeed where everyone else failed? And most importantly, what new industries, businesses and billion-dollar opportunities will be born if this actually works? The first question that we need to ask is, when Jio could come in and slash the cost of internet by 96% for India, why couldn't Jio just connect the rest 600 million people who don't have internet in India? What exactly is stopping Jio and Airtel from reaching the last frontier of India? Well, let's dive deeper. Right now, most of India's internet comes from fiber optic cables and mobile towers. So, fiber optic cables carry data from massive data centers, servers and internet hubs directly to the mobile towers. And once this data reaches the mobile towers, it's converted from these light pulses into wireless radio waves, which then reach your phone. So in cities like Mumbai, Delhi and Bangalore, you've got high-speed broadband, 5G and seamless connectivity. But the story changes the moment you step into rural India. Like I said, there are still 600 million Indians without reliable internet. Can you imagine that? That's almost twice the population of the US, 7 times the population of Germany, and 4 times the population of Russia. So the question is, why couldn't Jio and Airtel solve it? Well, that is because building internet infrastructure in remote regions is expensive, complicated, and more importantly, it's not profitable. Look at this. Fiber cables cost 5 to 7 lakh rupees per kilometer just to lay down, and we need hundreds of thousands of kilometers to cover all villages in India. Similarly, 5G towers cost around 25 to 35 lakh rupees each, and they require a steady power supply and constant maintenance. So in places like Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, these challenges make internet access almost impossible. Which is why even today in India, some villages still rely on 2G networks and many don't have internet at all. But that is where Starlink is changing everything.
Starlink is using a revolutionary satellite network that beams high-speed internet straight from space. No roads, no wires, just pure connectivity.
So consumers get faster internet speeds and they can connect from anywhere. All they need is a Starlink device. It works even in the most remote locations. In fact, that's the biggest advantage of Starlink.
Satellite internet has faster connection, the kind of quality of voice and data which the user will get based on the satellite internet services. Obviously, that is far much better than what we are currently getting.
Here's how Starlink has miraculously solved this problem. Instead of relying on fiber cables or towers, Starlink uses satellite that beam internet directly from space. So no roads, no cables, no infrastructure. Just high-speed internet wherever you are. But the question is, when the concept of satellite isn't new, when the concept of internet through satellite isn't new, why hasn't a telecom operator launched an internet satellite service yet? Look at this. The answer lies in this diagram. You see, the Earth has three main zones of satellite orbits. These three zones are low Earth orbit, which is 500 to 1000 kilometers above Earth, medium Earth orbit, which is 5000 to 20,000 kilometers away, and geostationary orbit, which is way above at 36,000 kilometers and above. Now, traditional satellite companies like HughesNet and Viasat used geo satellites because being so high up meant each satellite could cover a massive area of Earth. But the one big problem is, the farther away the satellite is, the longer it takes for your data to travel back and forth. Think about this. Geo satellites are 36,000 kilometers away. This means every single piece of data, like your video call or game commands, they have to travel 72,000 kilometers up and back, which causes a super annoying delay of 600 milliseconds or 0.6 seconds. And trust me guys, 0.6 seconds is terrible for gaming and video calls. Only the gamers will be able to understand this better. So while the current geo internet has a delay of 5 to 15 milliseconds, LEO satellites have a delay of 20 to 40 milliseconds, whereas geo satellites have a delay of 600 milliseconds. On top of all of this, traditional satellite internet from companies like Viasat still cost between $70 to $300 per month, as in 560 rupees to 2,400 rupees per month. So obviously, no one can afford that in villages. But this is when Elon Musk enters with SpaceX and Starlink.
Elon Musk, SpaceX and Starlink is wanting to do in India. It's announced an agreement with Airtel to bring Starlink's high-speed internet services to customers in India.
Starlink, provides an exciting turning point for Indian businesses. Enterprises are sectors ranging from agriculture, healthcare, education, can greatly enhance operational efficiency, improve services deliveries. So this is a significant milestone, I would say, for the businesses.
And here's what he did. Instead of parking their satellites super far away, SpaceX put Starlink satellites into the LEO zone, which is just 550 kilometers away from Earth. And since these LEO satellites are so much closer, signals move way faster and reduce latency to just 20 to 40 milliseconds. So it comes very close to the fiber optic broadband quality. And instead of just 3 or 4 giant geo satellites, Starlink is creating a massive network of 42,000 satellites. Yes, 42,000 satellites. And as of February 2025, over 7,052 Starlink satellites are already up, making it the largest satellite fleet in history.
The largest single constellation of satellites orbiting our planet is run by a mercurial individual who needs no introduction.
Yes, sir. and the darker pocket.
His company SpaceX operates Starlink, whose fleet of satellites beam high-speed internet.
Starlink, owned by Elon Musk's SpaceX company, runs more than 7,000 small satellites.
SpaceX envisioned launching up to 42,000 satellites.
Now the magical thing over here is that every Starlink satellite uses laser beams to talk to other satellites directly in space. This means data travels smoothly through space without relying on ground stations. So it's basically uninterrupted internet anywhere on Earth, even in the middle of a jungle. But wait a second, here's where we had one critical question. If Starlink's strategy is so amazing, why isn't everyone launching satellites in LEO? Because after all, Starlink is not the only company that can launch satellites, right? Well, as it turns out, the problem with LEO satellites is that they have a very small lifespan. They have a lifespan of 5 to 7 years, whereas GEO satellites, they last for 40 years. And this is because of 3 reasons. Firstly, there is something called atmospheric drag. So due to friction, Earth's atmosphere burns the LEO satellites down, which eventually destroys them. Then there is harsh space radiation, whereby LEO satellites get blasted with intense space radiation, which gradually weakens their parts. And lastly, there is collision risk. And since 84% of all satellites orbiting the Earth are in LEO, the risk of satellites crashing into space junk or other satellites is super high. So this means Starlink constantly has to launch new satellites just to replace the old ones. Plus, since LEO satellites keep on moving, you need thousands of them just to cover the whole planet. So do you realize, if launching a single satellite is expensive, managing a giant constellation of thousands of satellites is financially impossible for any company. Well, as it turns out, SpaceX has the superpower to launch satellites at a dirt cheap cost. Look at this. While traditional satellite companies spend $20,000 per kg, SpaceX does it for just $2,000 per kg. So the question is, how on earth did SpaceX pull off this miracle? Well, firstly, they use reusable rockets.
And liftoff of the Falcon 9.
Elon Musk's SpaceX is known for its frequent launches, which now dominate the space industry. But what many of these rockets are launching is just as important for the company as the launches themselves.
The SpaceX rocket blasted off from the California coast today, launching more than 50 Starlink internet satellites into orbit. The reusable Falcon 9 rocket safely landed on a platform in the ocean. SpaceX has launched more than 4,000 Starlink broadband satellites and plans to deploy thousands more as it provides internet access to dozens of countries.
Rockets like Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. These rockets are so extraordinary that they can be used up to 20 times in a row and 100 times with refurbishment. And this cuts their launch cost from $60 million to just $15 million per mission. So this is a massive leap of innovation. Secondly, unlike other satellite companies that rely on third-party manufacturers, SpaceX makes its own satellites in-house. This cuts down on middlemen costs and streamlines production. Thirdly, SpaceX has maximized payload capacity per launch. So while the Falcon 9 rocket can deploy up to 60 Starlink satellites in a single mission, competitors like Amazon Kuiper can only accommodate 32 satellites per launch. This is the reason why nobody as of now has been able to beat Starlink. And this is what brings us to the Starlink India story. And here's where it gets very interesting. Jio and Airtel are partnering with Starlink to bring satellite internet to India, especially to the remote areas where no one else could reach before. So what does this mean for Starlink? 2 things. Direct distribution across India through Jio and Airtel's existing retail channels, and number 2, faster adoption, because Jio and Airtel already have established customer bases and infrastructure. But the real question is, how will India's growth story benefit from this Starlink Airtel Jio partnership? Well, the first opportunity lies in digital education for rural India. According to UNESCO, every additional layer of schooling increases a person's income by 10%. But rural India's dropout rates are sky high due to poor connectivity. Now, I strongly believe that it is impossible to build edtech products for India 3 with profitability. Even in India 1, edtech companies have failed to scale profitably. So India 3 looks like a distant dream to me. But if the government can take this initiative up, I think it's quite feasible. Because it's not about business, it's about nation building. Secondly, the scope of rural telemedicine opens up. 70% of India's population still lives in rural areas, but only 40% of them are actually being served by doctors. And thirdly, there is an opportunity in rural e-commerce ecosystem. Rural e-commerce can double India's total online retail GDP contribution. So building low data vernacular mobile games could be a huge opportunity. And as far as Airtel and Jio are concerned, Starlink will be Airtel and Jio's first touch point for rural India. And when Jio or Airtel sell Starlink to rural India, they will become the first point of contact for internet users. Secondly, Jio and Airtel both will get total ecosystem control. So Jio and Airtel will now be able to upsell their entire portfolio of services. From Jio Cinema to Jio Pay, both companies will be able to monetize Starlink users by offering bundles to keep the customers locked in their ecosystem. But my skepticism over here is that in a village where people are relying on 2G data, how are they going to afford these services? And this is something that we'll only come to know in the future. But here's where I started looking into the challenges that Starlink will face in India.
For years, Starlink has been trying to enter India, but progress has been slow and uncertain. Starlink has struggled to clear India's regulatory hurdles. In 2022, they applied for a license. It's called the GMPCS, Global Mobile Personal Communication by Satellite. Starlink is yet to get that.
Elon Musk's Starlink could face a new tax hurdle in India. Reports suggest that the government is in fact considering a spectrum usage charge. One major challenge is India's strict data localization and security laws, which previously blocked Starlink's entry.
Starlink is awaiting final approval from India's National Space Promotion and Authorization Center.
Firstly, Starlink has been stuck with approval delays where they still need to clear all the licenses. Secondly, Starlink needs to ensure user data is stored within India, which requires ground stations and meeting security compliance. Thirdly, Starlink dish itself costs about 30 to 40,000 rupees, which is by far too expensive for an average Indian. And the monthly costs are expected to be around 4,000 rupees per month. But if Starlink is able to bring down the cost with time, it will be able to make its entry into India. But here's where most people would ask, if it's too expensive, if it's too complicated, why do we even need it in India? Well, here's where you need to look at the larger picture. You see guys, Starlink is not about giving internet access to rural India, but what people can achieve with this internet access. Because here's the thing, Starlink is not just a satellite service, it's the infrastructure for a new economic engine. In 2023, the World Bank estimated that every 10% increase in internet penetration in developing countries can lead to a 1.2% increase in GDP growth. Now imagine what will happen when 600 million more Indians come online. That's 600 million new consumers, 600 million new learners, and millions of new entrepreneurs. So with internet access, a remote village can start selling to urban India. A weaver can list on Amazon. And a student can actually learn English from rural India. Because when internet arrives in a village, so does education, healthcare, employment, and entrepreneurship. And when you achieve connectivity, you unlock efficiency, equity, and exponential growth. And India doesn't need 10 more unicorns in Mumbai. It needs 10 million connected minds in villages of Odisha, Ladakh, and Chhattisgarh. And if Starlink can enable that, then this isn't just about a tech story. This is the beginning of a new economic revolution with one rooftop dish at a time. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case study, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.